we go. Yeah. Okay, where's my camera at? Okay, so there we go. We live. Let me see which one I want to do. Yeah, I'm trying to get it where you guys can come in. Get it right. Don't worry about it. It's gonna take me a little time. Get it right. How's your spirit? Talk to me. Tell me something good. When I ask you how's your spirit, I'm asking you how's your connection with God. This is what we strive for. To get it right, do the right thing, no matter what. Um, we're gonna do chapters 6 to 8 tonight. But I'm trying to wait for some people to come in. I can talk a little bit about myself. Let me put this down. Yeah, I can talk about myself. Like I told you, I'm the youngest of three. My parents are gone. I'm in the world, dolo, solo. And that's a blessing, man. Of course, I got the most high, so I'm really not alone. And that's the true blessing. Um, my life has been like a roller coaster, and going back and forth to prison isn't something that is a thing that you would like or go to. But when you choose certain paths in your life, things are going to happen, and you just have to be able to understand that no matter what, you must do the right thing in your life when you get to that place in your life to where you understand. It took, like I tell you, it took me 50 something years for me to get the understanding and have the connection with 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 the God of my understanding. And the beautiful thing about it, right? When you have a connection with God, and like I tell you, I'm not a religious person. I'm just a spiritual being that like each and every one of us, I just don't have the desires that I used to have. And it makes me a better person today. But when you go back and forth, you know, you realize in life the people who are really in your corner, and you realize the people in your life who were just there, and it's not something to make you bitter. It's something to make you reflect, to make you understand how life is, because life is not easy. A lot of people may think that life is tough because you go into life not knowing anything. You come into this world not knowing not one thing. Something as simple as a stove hot, is difficult. But as you go through life and you start to grow and you start to understand life better, it comes a time in your life to where it's like you see life for what it is and you see people for they are, and you don't judge. You understand that's where they are in their lives. That's not where you're at. And you got to always strive to do and be better. And that's what I do today. No matter what I go through, no matter how many times I get knocked down, I keep getting up. You know, I come from a very, very strong black woman that, like I said, she had a ninth grade education, wound up owning 3 bars, a candy store, and Tacc, and traveled the world. You know, so anything is possible if you put your mind to it. I just want to help to heal as many souls as I can because I want to see us all in paradise. And enjoying that part of life. Because like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, this life is only fleeting. You know, you can't get a test and nothing in this life. And God tells you, even in the Bible, it says, not an atom's weight of pride can enter the paradise. So what goes along with pride? Jealousy, envy, hate, all kinds of isms and schisms that people have, that people do. And the beautiful thing about it, when you uh, understand, like I said, you don't judge. You just see it for what it is. Because one thing about life and people, they are going to show you what they feel about you and how you're going to deal with life. It's going to teach you. It's going to show you without no apologies or anything. That's just how life is. And the beautiful thing about it is when you get it, you got it. It's nothing like being at peace in your life where you know that the Most High has you. This is why, like I tell you, this is a spiritual program. And if you embrace it, man, it's going to be a beautiful thing for you, man. You know what it's like to be at peace. And I know a lot of y'all don't, you know. Even going through all I've been through, like I said, I did 28 years in federal prison. I did a 17-7, the first one, 11, 12 years, 7 months, 5 years supervised release. I count everything, of course. I was under their thumb. Second bid, 11 years, 6 years, and then 5 years out. And I've never made it. This is crazy. I've been on supervised release, some kind of probation, or in prison since 1986 of November. In that time, I've only been free for 9 months when I came home in 2015. No, 2005. Then wound up getting locked back up. And then in this last one, 21 years, $17,500 fine. I see somebody on there. Let me get a like, a subscribe. Talk to me. Let me know you're here. And the beautiful thing about it, in the beginning, you be like, man, but time passes. Time passes. But the most important thing is the lessons that you learn while you're there, especially when, you know, uh, people don't do for you or to you like you do for them or to them. And it teaches you, like, in this life, we're here alone. On the day of judgment, they says that we'll be uncircumcised and butt naked, and we won't even look at each other because it'll be so much going on in our lives. It'll be going so much going on in our lives that we won't even have time. They said a pregnant lady would drop a fetus. So what I've learned in my travels in these years, you know, it's up to you. You have to make things happen for yourself and never underestimate the next person's greed. Like they said in Scarface, never underestimate the other person's greed. And that's just how life is. And grief can come in all different forms. Could be a person don't want to go to jail, so you sacrifice. But the beautiful thing about it, you can't let it bother you. You can't let it get to you. You just have to keep striving because God isn't going to do anything to you to hurt you. You know, He wants us to win. You just got to find your place to win. Like I tell you, everybody has a purpose. And if you don't think you do, you're 1 out of 5 billion sperm cells that made it. Just think about that. You're 1 out of 5. So you have a purpose. But a lot of us don't pay attention, and this is what they said, let your conscience be your guide. That's your spiritual realm trying to show you. It's like you was trying to go left and something told you to go right. You went left and got a headache. But when you went right, like it told you, you ducked the headache. That's your conscience. Let your conscience be your guide. This is what I've learned, and when you have a feeling, you got to go with it. Look, you know, after coming home, I had to go to a halfway house, then a shelter, because my family's dead, and then the other part of my family we don't talk no more, which is a blessing because it made me do the right thing for the first time in my life. Whereas I made sure that I had everything that I was supposed to have done. And then look, I wound up getting my own place. And then that place got shot up. And then now I got my other place, you know. But it's because of doing the right thing, like, and I tell people I'm not bitter. I got shot 9 times last year. Ramadan, the last day of Ramadan, by another Muslim. And may Allah forgive him, and he wound up passing. But when I came home, I had to pray for the brother. Of course, I know where he's at. It's not nice, it's not nice. So, uh, man, I forgive everyone in my life, man. Y'all were all lessons and blessings, and y'all don't even know it. Because everything I went through or had to go through is because of either you did the right thing by me or you didn't. So, however, it was a lesson and a blessing, you know. And these are the things that we have to understand. It's only through adversity comes change. Nothing changes till something changes. If nothing changes, nothing changes. And like I tell you, a lot of us are so comfortable with being uncomfortable. They're afraid to venture out. This is what life is all about. It's about taking that leap of faith. And when you take that leap of faith, man, life, it's gonna be tough. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's not gonna be easy. But if you take it, man, it's gonna be a beautiful thing, man. I just want the best for everyone. I just want us all to win. And I know that's a lot to ask, you know, and the only way we can win is if we heal. We gotta heal. We've been through so much trauma and drama, being hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, dog killed. I mean, you name it. We've gone through it, and if you think that that's not a psychological thing, I know you got a lot of brothers. Oh man, get over it. That happened. No, that's a psychological thing. And then the crazy part about it, they're still doing it, but it's not physical no more. It's mental. So you have to understand that that this prong has a whole bunch of different sides, and these people are masters at what they have. They have layers. Look what's going on in the world. We're fighting somebody else's war because we're compromised. Our whole government is compromised. And I tell people, it's only uh, one world rule. The people who run the world tell the congressmen and senators what they want. Like when I was away, I did a lot of studying. And one of the things, I studied was kind of like politics, like the uh, uh, Balfour Agreement, where they gave in 1913, they gave Israel, you know, part of Palestine and made it Egypt. 1913 when they come up with the Federal Reserve. You know, um, the people who run this world use the politicians, and like they're saying with the Epstein thing, this is why they don't want it to come out because it's going to destabilize the world because the world is going to see the people who they've put their trust in are straight criminals. And it's just sad. Like, I grew up with morals, principles, and scruples, and when you see your government is not even right, it's just sad, you know. Um, that's life, but like I tell you, I didn't let getting shot make me bitter. What I did is I wrote a book. That was God awakening me to, like I tell you, for 6 years, He woke me up 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning with ideas. You know, I got a whole book with 30 apps, devices, and business concepts that I created. And when I got shot, it was God telling me, look, you need to focus on this stuff that I I gave you. You say you want this, you want that. You got to put the work in. So now, I'm putting the work in. And like I tell you guys, this is the book. Through adversity comes change. It's green. It's shattered glass because we're all broken and we all need to heal. This is the thing. I tell people this is God's work. I'm intelligent, but I don't think I'm that smart. Where I can make a program that everything falls right after each other to help you to heal. And once you go through all these different things, you're going to definitely heal. You know, um, so I can't take the credit. I'm just a vessel to give it to you. I want you guys to embrace this journey so bad. You don't know how bad I thirst to be able to interact with people and show them about the journey, about going through adversities and making the changes. I'm praying that my following becomes millions. Because I guarantee you, if you take this process sincerely, I mean sincerely, not playing around, half-assing. I mean seriously. I guarantee you're going to make changes in your life, and you're going to gain, like I tell you, that inner peace. It's nothing like having that inner peace, man. Where you just know that God has you, and everything in your life just flows. My life flows. I can't complain about nothing. I cannot complain about anything because God has blessed me. And I'm not afraid to say that. You know, Allah is Akbar. He's the greatest. That's why He's the only one that has that title. And I'm living proof that He's the greatest. Look at all the things I've been through. 28 years in federal prison, losing houses, losing businesses, losing millions of dollars, and still able to rise, still able to do what I'm supposed to do, no matter what nobody say, feel, and think, no matter who's there in my corner or not. As long as I got a law, I'm gonna be okay because I live right. I don't have any vices anymore. It was the one time I had mad vices. I don't have them no more. I thank God for that. And my whole purpose is to help each and every one of us to heal if we want it. to show you how to be uncomfortable with being uncomfortable so you can be comfortable with being comfortable for the last time. And what's crazy is so many of us want to make change, but we're afraid. We're afraid to lose a friend. We're afraid of what somebody's going to say. Man, you got to do what you got to do. You have to do what you have to do, man. No matter, you're in this world by yourself. Walk in this world as if you're traveling. If you got people in your life, alhamdulillah, make them a part of it. But if you don't, like myself, man, you just got to do what you got to do. And I'm not lonely. I'm not any of that. I have things to do. I have a mission. I want to be out of America in 2030. Whereas I done made my fortune and I'm gone. Go around the world, help people who really need help. That's what makes me happy when I can help others. And this right here is going to help. Through adversity come change. You got to go through it to get to it. Me and a friend was just talking the other day, and I was like, man, that first bid, man, 151 months, and you think it's never going to end. But man, that ended, then another, then another, you know. So in life, man, you just got to be patient and know that, man, nothing is forever. Nothing is forever. And it's only through our adversities where we make changes in our lives. Like James Baldwin said, he said, everything cannot be faced, but nothing can be changed until anything is faced. You have to face it in order for it to make change. It ain't gonna change if you don't face it, And like I said, I know it's gonna be a tough road. I know it's gonna be hard, because like who is this nigga? Who is this dude? Who's this cat? You know, what does he have to offer? All I want to offer is peace, change, healing. Like I said, 5 principles, 3 articles, 1 healers, helping everyone accept, achieve, and appreciate love. Something that we're all missing. And if we ever get it, man, it's a beautiful thing. You know, my thing is I just want to help, you know. And the only way I'm gonna be able to help is with this platform, you know. And I sincerely hope and pray. I sincerely hope and pray that you guys get on board. But I'm gonna start reading, right? Chapter 6. Past knowledge, reckoning. Every chance, every change begins with reckoning. You can't walk into tomorrow carrying yesterday's weight and expect new ground to hold you. This is where the real work starts, the road of change. Every step asks a question. What happened? When did it start? Where did I lose myself? How did I respond? Who was who was I back then? And these are just some of the questions you got to ask yourself in order to make change. To know yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Aristotle said that. You can't skip knowledge phase. It's the part everyone avoids because it hurts to look back. But if you don't learn from your past, you drag it with you. And one of the true sayings is, you take you everywhere you go. And one of the major things I tell people, you have to let that past go. In order for me to gain my peace, I had to let the past go. There's no instructions to this thing called life. None. No instructions. So the whole thing is that we have to learn on the fly. And did I make a lot of mistakes? Yes, I did. Did I do a lot of good? Yes, I did. And it's only up to God to judge. Which one is, you know, heavier. But you have to make an effort to make change, you know. And the only way you can do that is you have to let that past go. The people who hurt you, the people who helped you, the people who whatever, you have to let it go. Only way you're gonna heal is you have to let that go and let God. And when you do that, man, life is gonna be so much easier for you. And then when you're able to forgive others, it's gonna take some time. But you're gonna learn to forgive yourself. And once you learn to forgive yourself, now everything is open now. Of course, now you're gonna start to understand peace. You know, and that's something I wish, I could just give to people, but you have to earn it. Like Sammy Davis, not Sammy Davis, Dick Gregory said. He says when God give you those glasses where you can see life for what it is and people for they are, you can't take them off and you can't give them away. You earned them, so you're gonna see life for what it is. And like I said, once you understand life, you're not gonna uh, worry about the pain. You're gonna keep looking forward because you know that everything God puts you through, it's a lesson and a blessing. Whatever He puts you through, is to get you strong enough to deal with the things that He has for you in the future. The weight of what was. Knowledge doesn't arrive wrapped in glory. It comes in awareness. Read that again. Knowledge doesn't arrive wrapped in glory. It comes as awareness. Like I said, once you're able to see, once you're able to let go and be at peace, you're aware of everything. And what I was saying earlier, let your conscience be your guide. That's your awareness. It tells you what direction to go. The first thing when you realize I did this, I allowed that, I ignored those signs. And going back to what I was saying about your conscience tells you, yo, turn left, but you turn right. You're not paying attention. But when you're paying attention, you see it for what it is. You know, and like it says, the first thing, like, oh, but are you paying attention? And you must take the responsibility. I did this. I allowed that. I ignored those signs. Yeah, because you wasn't paying attention. You know, I'm at the age where I'll be 62 this year. If I don't pay attention now, I'll never pay attention and not pay attention. And that's what it's all about. It's humbling, and that's the point. When you are able to be humbled by something, that's a great feeling, you know, because you let go all the pride. You know, a lot of people don't understand how to let go of the pride. They're living it forever. But when something humbles you, you let the pride go and you do the right thing. Pride can't travel where truth is going. You see what I'm saying? It can't. You have to strip down to the honest parts of yourself if you want real change. What I was telling you got to be 100% real with this. If not, it's nothing going to change. Nothing happens, nothing happens. And if nothing changes, nothing changes. You have to be honest enough to look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? It's time. It's time for me to do the right thing with my life. But everybody's not ready for that. And it comes in time. And it's only through adversity those changes take place. Solomon wrote, with much wisdom comes much sorrow. The more knowledge, the more grief. Yeah. The more you know, the more you held accountable. And this is why I say, when you heal and you're at peace, you don't have to worry about that because you're going to do the right thing for all the right reasons because this is what's in you. No matter what, you do the right thing. And this is what it's all about. Doing the right thing for the right reasons. Because God is always watching. You know, that's not a warning, it's a confirmation. Growth will cost you your comfort. Nothing that's good is going to be easy. Not one thing. Not one thing that's good is going to be easy. Just how life is. God made it that way. This is why I call sacrifice. You know, you have to sacrifice something for the things that you want in life. The classroom of reflection. When you revisit old pain, don't stay as a victim. Return as a student. Like pay attention. Like I said, I could have after I got shot, I could have played victim. No, it made me get up and do something positive. You know, I returned as a student of understanding of life. No matter what, I got to do the right thing. You know, the same lesson will repeat until you pass them. Like I said, if nothing changes, nothing changes. Every mistake is a teacher, disguise and regrets clothing. Say that again. Every mistake is a teacher, disguised in regrets clothing. And this is why you have to forgive yourself for the mistakes you made because you didn't have instructions. There's no instructions in life. There's no instructions to parenting. You learn on the fly, or you learn from what you see other women do, or other men do, or what other people teach you, your elders. But you don't have instructions. Quran 93:7. And he found you lost and guided you. You can look back and find grace hiding in the same place. Guilt, the past can't be rewritten, but it can be reinterpreted, used to live. I got to read that again. You can look back and find grace hiding in the same place of guilt. The past can't be rewritten, but it can be reinterpreted. Use it live. The bridge forward. Once you stop running from what was, you can start walking towards what's next. Knowledge builds bridges between you. Knowledge builds bridges between who you were and who you're becoming. You get that? You know, knowledge builds bridges between who you were and who you're becoming. So it's a road to change. You have to go through it. Buddha said, pain is certain, suffering is optional. Yeah, you can go through pain, but suffering is optional. Suffering is when you lay in it. Yeah, things happen. Like I said, I could have been like that. No, never going to let things get me down. He understood that knowledge doesn't heal the wound, it shows you where to apply the medicine. And here's the quiet truth: your past isn't a prison, it's proof that you survived what tried to destroy you. Now, think of that 28 years. of my life I spent away, but it didn't break. I still have all my faculties. I even got hair and all my teeth. At 61, thank God, alhamdulillah. But I didn't let the past be my prison. And this is why I say you have to let go of the past. But the beautiful thing is, I was able to survive all of the things that I've been through. And a lot of things I've been through, I know it broke a lot of brothers and sisters. But that's life. Everybody has their own path to bear. The lesson was never about loss. It was about learning how to rise. See that? And when you start looking at life, when we start to heal together and you start looking at life in a positive light, you see that everything that God put you through is to get you to where you need to be. You're always where you're supposed to be, no matter what. Chapter 7, present wisdom, the middle of the road. This is the still point between who you were and who you're becoming. Like I tell you, then once you get to wisdom, which is the present, you're gonna be able to see a lot better about life. Of course, you went through knowledge, and knowledge broke you down. Now this is gonna help build you. The noise of the past is fading, but the future hasn't spoken yet. Wisdom lives here in the pause. You've learned that rushing only repeats pain. The wise don't hurry, they move with understanding. Let your conscience be your guide. Whoever is granted wisdom has indeed been granted abundant good. Quran 2:269. Wisdom isn't knowledge polished, it's knowledge lived. You get that? Wisdom isn't knowledge polished, it's knowledge lived. It's the difference between knowing what to do and actually doing it. The world teaches information, God teaches timing. That's the only thing you can't get back. It's time. The calm between lessons. The past will keep you calling to see if your number still works. Wisdom let it ring. Dig that? Wisdom lets it ring. Moses stood at the Red Sea not knowing what would happen next. He didn't have a plan, only obedience. And see, that's what I said. When you have peace, you follow God's instructions. You live right, you do right. And I said, wrong doesn't even feel good. So you can't, uh, I just, that doesn't work for me. That's what faith looks like in motion. Uncertainty carries the truth, carried by trust. Let me read that again. That's what faith looks like in motion. Uncertainty carried by trust. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives generosity to all without finding fault. James 1:5. Patience is the language of wisdom. Every pause is prepared for purpose. You know, um, you know, when you start to see the things that God has blessed me to be able to see, and you hold no grudges. You see life for what it is, and it is it's what it is, what it is, and you keep it pushing. That's what life is about. The practice of presence. Wisdom teaches you how to stay where your feet are. Anxiety lives in the future. Guilt lives in the past. Peace lives only in the present. When you slow down enough to listen, life starts talking back. Conscious. Let your conscious be God. Stillness becomes strategy, and you stop mistaking motion for progress. Quran 23:78. And he it is who produces for you hearing and vision in hearts. Little are you great. We stop and thank God, every day, just being able to see, able to smell, be able to taste, be able to hear, be able to walk, be able to talk, be able to breathe, be able to think. You know, we just have to learn. We have to learn. Something we're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to learn. The wise don't always speak. They see. And when they move, it's deliberate. The general authority of understanding. True wisdom doesn't need to prove itself. It simply is. You recognize it in how a person handles pressure, how they forgive quietly, how they serve without show. Socrates said, the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. Person who says he knows everything really don't know. And the people who know, know. Humility keeps the wise grounded. It reminds them that every revelation has another layer. So stay teachable because the moment you think you've learned it all, life will enroll you in a new class. Chapter 8, the future, understanding, the horizon ahead. Understanding is prediction. Understanding isn't prediction. Prediction. Say that once again. Understanding isn't prediction. It's perception shared by faith. You stop asking what's next and start asking what's right. Like I tell you, wrong don't feel right no more. You gathered knowledge, learned patience. Now you see patterns that once just felt like pain. Understanding turns chaos into clarity. Quran 93:7. And he found you lost and guided. God doesn't reveal the full road, just enough light for the next step. That's mercy, not mystery. If we saw everything at once, we stop depending on him. What I tell you, I said, we would love to live our lives backwards, but we must live it forward. Because if we live it backwards, we won't get the lessons and the blessings. If we live it forward, we get the lessons and the blessings. If we pay attention. The lens of faith. The future isn't waiting somewhere far off. It's being shaped by what you believe today. Faith is the lens that turns confusion into calling. Truth in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Proverbs 3:5. Let me read that again. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Proverbs 3:5. Einstein said, the most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible. He was describing divine order without using the word divine. Every moment you choose trust over control, you participate in that order. The architecture of hope. The future doesn't build itself. You build it with what you think, say, and so. Hope isn't a wish, it's a work ethic. Do not despair of the mercy of God, Allah. Quran 39:53. When you start treating hope as strategy, everything changes. You plan with purpose instead of fear. You plant ideas expecting harvest. The faithful don't wait for signs; they create them. And this is something I always tell people in life when they say, "Oh man, these people." No, you make your life. I've always made my life. I'm just not doing illegal things no more, you know. But I'm going to make my life no matter what. And that's what it's all about. It's about understanding and knowing that you have a purpose and living in your purpose and doing what you're supposed to do in your purpose. You know, I, I, I just know in my heart and soul that I'm going to be successful in what I have to do because I feel it. You know, I've prophesied it for years. You know, you can ask some of my buddies, you know, that were with me when I was in the belly of the beast. And I told them how things were going to go. And that's how they went. Thank God, you know. But it's about really understanding the faith, man, and living it the right way. Feel so much better. And appreciating whatever God gives you. Because when you're ungrateful, it takes it all away. Every act of kindness, every decision made in integrity becomes the blueprint for a future worth living. Doing the right thing. Just doing the right thing. The clarity after confusion. Understanding arises when resistance leaves. What used to feel random begins to rhyme. You start to see how every closed door guided your steps, how every unanswered prayer protects your faith. All things work to all things work together for the good of them that love God. Romans 8:28. That's not poet. That's not poetic. It's practical. Once you understand peace, once you understand, peace replaces panic and you stop reading to know how because you finally trust who? Yourself. I'm going to stop there. We're going to go from 8 to 10 tomorrow, you know, but this platform, excuse me, this platform is dedicated to those who've been broken and rebuilt, to every soul that learned faith in the dark. This book is for the ones who kept walking when it would have been easier to stop. May your scars remind you that survival was never the goal, becoming was. Let's take this journey together. You know, I know it's going to take a minute for me to get, you know, my people up, but I'm here, you know, and I'm going to be here every night, 7:35, so we can do this, you know. Um, I just want us to win. And the only way we're going to win is we have to do it together. Through adversity comes change. Get your life together, do what you got to do, and just know that, man, you got a place you want to heal. You know, all my information is there. Contact me, DM me, whatever. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know that you're with me. You know, talk to me. I talk back. But y'all have a blessed night. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Peace. Tacc, man out.